Alright, welcome everyone, and I'm super excited today to bring you the Nexus Prime team. Now, Nexus Prime was the first combiner created by Primus, and there's a whole lot of interesting lore with that, but I'm not going to get too much into it. I want to focus more on the toys themselves. And yeah, so here we have the whole Nexus Prime team, and this is based off of the original version that came out, like for the Transformers Collectors Club, which came out over the course of 5 years. Now, the thing about the first Nexus Prime toy that they made was that it was based off the Energon Power Links combiners, and the interesting thing about those combiners was that apparently they had some budgeting issues, like near the tail end of that show, and they could only come up with like 9 to 10 new molds. So at the time they had an option. They could either create two molds, 2 like combiners with 5 molds each, or 3 combiners with 3 molds each, recycling. It's like 2 of the limb modes. And they essentially went with the latter option. So they created Constructicon Maximus, based on the Constructicons, Superion Maximus, and Bruticus Maximus. And, you know, those were cool toys, relatively, for the time. Like a nice return to form for the combiners. But obviously they were a bit flawed. Like I said, they essentially recycled 2 of the same molds. And much later on, 2 of them, the Bruticus and the Superion, were re-released for Revenge of the Fallen. And, you know, they had better colorations and the names of the originals. But one of the things that was really interesting that happened at that time is that you saw the rise of third party. And so, you know, what started at first with simple upgrades and eventually full figures basically started because of thanks to that. And if you go further back in my channel, you can actually see that those are some of the first reviews I do. You can see the how Fans Project improved the Superion and the Bruticus sets. With Superion, they just had parts, and with the Bruticus set, they replaced 2 core members to make it more like the original team. But going back to the Maximus combiners, you know, bringing it back full circle, they essentially took some of those members and put them together. So you had the construction team, I mean not the construction, the destruction team, which was based on the based off of the Combaticons, and that sort of became like the torso and 2 of the limbs. And then they took 2 from the air team, which you can see here, and that's how they created their version of Nexus Maximus, if you will. Yeah, apparently at the time there was like some weird naming issue going on. Like, for whatever reason, Hasbro didn't want to use the name Prime, so they sort of came up with the Prime Nexus and the other things. But going with the convention of the original Power Links, where they all had Maximus, they're like, oh, let's just go with Nexus Maximus. Turns out that they didn't use safe mode on the Google searches when they were looking for the name, and let's just say Nexus Maximus is a completely different item, different toy, if you will, meant for a very different group. So yeah, it created a lot of jokes back then, but I'm not gonna go too deep in that. Like, if you know, just don't bother looking it up. Let's just say it's not safe for work. Let's just say that. So yeah, so in the newer version, they just stuck with the name Nexus Prime. And yeah, that one was the first release of the Transformers Collectors Club figures, and they would basically just release 1 per year, so it took 5 years for them to make Nexus Prime. Yeah, well, obviously this one didn't take nearly as long, but this is based off of those figures. It's like with the Combiner Wars molds. And obviously some of them worked, some of them didn't. The original versions had translucent plastic. These do not. And some of these, it's like basically like they have to be altered because it's like they don't transform the same way. So they use either different molds or different paint applications. But Yeah, these were all painted by Cool Jazz Customs, and for some, it's like they were pretty straightforward. Others had to use a lot more imagination, and we're gonna get into all those individually. So yeah, that was the Nexus Prime intro, and we're gonna touch a little bit on the lore, but focus more on the toys. So stay tuned, everyone. Yep.